All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Latasha Hewitt, and I want to welcome you, the other Upsetters with me today. You'll recognize some of these faces, and we have a couple of new ones. First of all, hello, everyone.
Hey, good.
How are you, Latasha?
Hi. And we want to let our other upsetter, Pastor Justin Pierre, know that we are happy for him and his wife as they welcome a new addition this week. So we've all been excited about that. Can't wait to have an episode on parenting for him. So we're really excited about that. Well, this is called the Upset Podcast for a reason. And I think, team, as we thought about the upset and what we wanted it to be, I don't think we realized there would be so many things for us to be upset about. However, this world has not disappointed in that regard. Of course, anyone who is, even if you're not following the news, if you're on social media even, you've seen a lot of the things that have been happening in our world with the Black Lives Matter movement, the brutality, police brutality against people of color, the recent shootings of Dante Wright and Adam Toledo, and all of this on the backdrop of George Floyd's murder's trial all going on. And there's a lot of tension in the air, a lot of people trying to reconcile these feelings they have, and even what we should do as Christians, what we should do as individuals in the midst of all of this rage that seems to be going on in our world. And so we thought, hey, if we're called the upset and so many people are upset, that this is a topic that we really needed to address. And as always, we invite your comments as we're talking. You can share your comments in the chat, and we'll follow up with them and see what you're thinking about these issues. But team, of course, there's been a spotlight on police brutality because I think people are really starting to identify that this is an issue that's not going away. We're seeing it seem to ramp up in some regards. Let's tackle that. What are your thoughts about the police? Are we being too hard on the police? Are we not? Are we letting the bad apples outweigh all of the good apples on the police force? You know, what's the deal?
Well, I think we all, I mean, in many ways, we'll be preaching to the choir on this one. We all know that the abuse of power comes as a part of the human condition. The sin is basically a misuse of power and prerogative. And the police officers historically have misused their powers, not only with people of color, but just in general, because human beings do that. But when it is coupled with racism and considerations of superiority, that abuse of power becomes even worse. And we're seeing it. We know it's there. The issue isn't whether or not we can define it or qualify it. The issue is, why is it? And some of us are old enough to remember the Rodney King case. Mm-hmm. How is it that people can see the same thing and suspend their disbelief and say, I didn't see that? That is where the outrage is. It's not on whether or not the police are doing it or anything like that. And so we know it's there. The issue is what's causing people to say, I don't see what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. Or even making the victim, the oppressor, having more sympathy towards the officer in some of these cases than the person who was actually murdered or injured. I think we're seeing a lot of that as well. And I was just sharing with the team how I was offended by a post I saw on my social media where someone said, police, with all of the noise going on, we're not sure if you know this, but you're appreciated and we love you. And I understood the sentiment, but I thought it was a little insensitive because right now, they always said you deal with the issue at hand. Right now, the reason the police are in this situation, I'm sorry, we lost are in this situation is because of the actions of this police force. And, I was listening to Trevor Noah. You guys know him?
Sure.
And he was talking about, I referenced the good apples and the bad apples. And one of the points he made is that, people are saying there's just one, there's a bad apple, but for the most part, they're good apples. And he said, well, why aren't the good apples telling the bad apples stop being bad? In other words, where's the accountability to all the other good police officers in monitoring some of the bad behavior that they're seeing? And what they're finding out from research is, there's this code, you protect the brotherhood, and at what point, I guess we're asking, can the brotherhood die and humanity live? For back for the phrase.
Well, look, I don't want to be the only one speaking here, but we know the issue exists. We know that it's out there, and at times when they say we make the victim, we cite the victim's blame. There is some blame for the victim. I mean, for example, it doesn't justify what happened, but many people are talking about the fact that Adam Toledo is a 13-year-old at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I mean, and so, but the thing is, we don't pay Adam Toledo to do one thing or the other. We pay the police officers to deliver a specific product, and that is the dispensation of justice according to law. And so while we're checking to see if translation really occurs with Leslie there, I want to make the point that it is time for us to simply find ways to control the abuse of power that police officers are displaying. I mean, there are over 1,000 police shootings every year. The majority of them are white, but the rate of black people being shot is so much higher. I believe it's something like 25% of all police fatalities, fatal shootings are black people. So we got a problem here.
Definitely.
Yeah. And there, to the statement about the good apple, bad apple, I think we're smart enough to know that there are some very good, honorable, professional police officers. Mm-hmm. I've run into them myself. I know a couple personally. And so we don't want to sweep with a broad brush. We do know that there are good law enforcement officers out there, male and female. But the issue is, as you said, Latasha, there seems to be a quietness, a hush about internal outcry when their colleagues do things that are outrageous. Now, I have come across a couple of articles where some police officers quit because they said they didn't want to be a part of this kind of policing. And then there's the question of training. I think that's part of the issue there. Who are these people? Who are these people that go to these police academies? What are their backgrounds? Mm-hmm. I think that speaks a lot, because you can have a professional. I've seen a police officer in Philadelphia, trying to quell a situation. He was cursed at. He was yelled at, by the potential victim, and he remained perfectly calm, and started talking to the individual and saying, you really don't want to go there. Let's try. In other words, he was trying to de-escalate. Yeah. Are not our police officers trained to de-escalate, or just go to Wild Wild West mode? Mm-hmm. And that's a big question for me. I question the training. How do you filter these people? How do you determine who's good for for policing? That's big for me. Yeah, Pat?
Chuck, to me, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And that comes along with responsibilities, right? I'm not even one to talk about whether or not you should police your own area or your own people. I'm not even discussing that, because we don't say that about firemen. You know what I mean? We don't say that about EMS workers. But what I do feel is that after a while, being in the leadership role that you are in the community, you start to lose one thing and gain another. And that pride level, that level of I'm the king, I'm that level of I can do what I want. Let's even stay in that area. I can do what I want. It's scary that that we can't step to the side and say, hold on, you need to learn to police again. You need to be retrained. And everybody's upset with retrainings. I mean, to me, it should be mandated that they would be retrained every now and then, because pop culture is the thing that changes, right? We don't have gangs in certain neighborhoods anymore that you have to pull up to someone and automatically draw your guns. To me, when you automatically draw your guns, what do they tell you in training? Just forget policing. When they train you in gun training, they tell you if you put your hand on it, you better use it. So, and that's their mentality, is that when they pull up next to you, they're going to use their guns. Why training again? I mean, you have a small pencil and you have a large pencil. You have a plastic piece of equipment, and then you have a metal piece of equipment. And you're telling me you can't tell the difference? And right. You are a trainer? She's a trainer herself. And
yeah, you're referring to the...
Come on. Her name is Kim Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and if I might add, gentlemen, something you touched on, Tasha, about humanity. As police, if you do not have humanity for people, if your knee is on someone and they say they can't breathe, if you're choking them, you've got them in a chokehold, and there are multiple police around you. So even if he was to move, there's support. So it's not, and they don't have a gun. There's support for you so that your life is not endangered.
Yeah.
If someone is saying, I cannot breathe, and you dismiss it, and it appears to us who are viewing that you do not care, right? Because this person does not have a gun. And then once they're dead, your statement is that, okay, they died.
Right.
And there is no remorse. This is someone's son, someone's father, someone's brother, someone's spouse. And it appears that there is no remorse for you. I saw one shooting. I don't know if you guys remember this. This guy was homeless, and it was he and his dog, and he wanted to go into the bathroom. I forget which city it was. And as I think the people didn't want him to bring his animal in or something like that. So the police researched him, and they saw that there was a warrant on his arrest. And so the guy hadn't done anything at the time, and they put him in the chokehold, and he said he couldn't breathe. And so he died, and the policeman just got up. Well, yeah, he's dead. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, there's no remorse. This is a person. And though I understand that at the end of the day, the police want to go home, we want you to go home as well. But we need humanity. We need people who are policing with feelings and people who have compassion, right? Because the same way every policeman is not evil, every person you pull over is not evil. Every house that you go to, they're not evil people in the house. They're not, murderers and drug abusers. And so if you don't care about people and it's just a number or it's just a body, then you don't care what happens to them in the response, And then when there are unions that say, hey, we support the policeman. I haven't heard of one union that said to that policeman, I'm sorry, that was not right what you did. Instead, we hear, we support you. You did nothing wrong. And I know what I see with my eyes. It's like you're trying to play Jedi tricks with my eyes when I know what I see. And yet you tell me that I don't see what I see. And I'm going, but I'm an educated person. I'm smart. I know how to see what I see on the camera. Right. And so, I think that we have caused these issues. And even what Tasha was saying, someone says, hey, police, we support you. Hey, listen, I want you to go home safely too. But I also want you to have respect for us when you pull us over. Don't just pull out the gun, because as Pat just said, when you pull out a gun, you are going to use it. It is so quickly to pull that little trigger and a bullet comes out. And then where you shoot the person, because if you shoot me in my leg, that's going to slow me down. But if you shoot me in my chest, you are targeting for my heart, which means you are shooting to kill me. And
Mhm.
if you're shooting to kill me because you pulled me over because my license plate is expired, or I have an air freshener, in my mirror, you are killing me for a very minor issue. And then when I hear
right.
that it was justified, and that means my life, I was
It's
just
not
looking
worth
at the word expendable, right?
That's
My
right.
life, right,
Mhm.
has no worth.
That's right.
But your
That's
I,
life does. Your life
I,
has worth, but my life has no worth. I know you're ready, right? You guys are ready. And so I have issues now with you. And I have 2 young boys, and
I'm playing the
I'm
choir music.
praying for them. I'm praying for them. And I said, God, I don't want to just pray for my kids. I want to pray for the youth of my church, that
I,
when my boys leave home, that
yeah,
they
That's
don't get
right.
pulled over by the police, right? And I'm
coming back.
telling them what to do. I want to make sure they say the right thing. But I'm from Virginia. So when the
Mhm.
lieutenant got pulled over in December, right?
Yep.
He gets
Yep.
pulled over. He knows what to do. His hands are in the right place. He drives to a lighted place, and I'm so glad he did, a
Yep.
lighted place. And then
Yeah.
he says, why are you pulling me over? And immediately there is anger, there is
That's right.
profanity,
They don't
and
like that.
you
Right.
and you demand
Right.
respect, but
That's
you
right.
don't respect me when I haven't done anything wrong. And you're pulling me over as if I have killed 9 people in a church, but the person who
Mhm.
killed 9 people in a church, when
Got
you
to get
found him in another
Uh-oh.
state, and
and got
that's
to
a
go to Burger
federal
King.
offense now because
Yep.
he's in another state, you take him to get a meal
That's right.
so that when you take him, right, and
That's right.
he
Mhm.
is charged, he is full, right? And who the
Oh
guy
man. Yeah.
that shot
Yeah.
the people
Uh-oh.
in Georgia, right? When
He's
he
Oh.
shot
upset.
them in the salons, oh,
We
he was having a
we
bad
interrupt this
Bad
day.
day.
soliloquy.
He was having a
Hard.
bad day.
Marlena,
Right.
I
And so
got
my life doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
I,
life doesn't matter.
my
Right.
sister preacher.
All right.
And look,
Yo.
and probably 75% of that I agree with. But I mean, and as I said before, we're preaching to the choir. I mean, this is red meat to those whom we preach to. Everybody agrees with it.
Mhm.
However,
How do we know the choir is not just the choir who's listening?
well, maybe not. But there's some things that got stated there that we've got to take a look at. I mean, for
Mhm.
example, like where you shoot a person. Police officers are trained to shoot center mass.
To kill. To kill.
To nullify the threat.
To kill.
To nullify
That's
the
to
threat.
kill.
Okay. Go
To
ahead.
nullify the threat.
Nullify.
Nullify the threat means to stop the person, which is why if a person goes down, the Laquan McDonald shooting in Chicago, where that officer trained his weapon on a person supposedly with a knife approaching him. We all found out he lied, and he went to jail. He shot that kid 17 times.
17 times.
All right. So now here's the thing. And that's why he went to jail, because the threat was nullified. He keeps shooting.
Mm.
When police, you can't tell a police officer to shoot him in the arm or shoot him in the leg.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I know of a case where an officer said that I tried to stop him by shooting him in the leg, and he was fired because you are trained to shoot center mass. To do anything other than that is different.
Well, and listen.
And sir, I was very aware. I'm sorry, Pat, you want to go ahead?
No. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. I mean, y'all.
The point I'm making is that, and I've gone on a number. I remember going on a police ride along when I was in DC. You know, when you are in that position, I'm in a police car. I'm with these are undercover detectives. Man, sirens on, lights. We're blazing through the city. They get to the project building. All of us jump up out. Now I'm 28 years old. I jump out the car. I'm running up the steps. I'm halfway down the hallway running behind these guys when I realize I ain't got no gun. I mean, because what happens is you are so charged. I'll give you a good example. Police officers are trained, and most of what they do is on muscle memory, like you and I. When you're driving your car, you don't tell yourself, put your hand on the turn signal, lift it up until you hear the detente click into place, and then turn. It's muscle memory. You just do it because you're used to doing it. Police officers are so accustomed to picking up their taser and their handgun, their taser, their handgun. In a supercharged moment, if you just flip the script, you can pick up one and not realize which one you're doing because you're used to both of them. That can happen. Now, I'm not here to say that she shouldn't be prosecuted. I'm here to say that can happen. You do it all the time. You go to pick up a can opener in your kitchen and you accidentally pick up something else because you're just used to picking them up both.
Sorry. I'm not going in the kitchen. So I'm not.
It can happen.
Now I agree that it can happen, but there's got to be a quick second that says to you, I was going for a knife and I picked up a fork, or I was going for, and I'm not taking that away from you. I'm just,
that second comes after the incident, and you hear it in that case where she says, "I shot him." You know, I shot him. And
yes, but Nick,
no, she's dead wrong. Don't get me wrong. She's dead wrong. I'm simply saying
it can happen.
That when we put these people in uniform, they are in a position where number one, we're asking them to do too much. We call them for too much. If the cat's in the tree, we call the cops. If somebody is having a mental breakdown, we call the cops. Somebody needs to go to the hospital, we call them for too much. And as a result of that, then we put them in positions. I mean, look, we're pastors. We know what it's like. We know how jaded we get sometimes.
Yes.
You put a person in a position where we can put a person in a position where they constantly and continuously see the worst side of human nature on a regular basis, you know, and then we don't give them certain things. I mean, we gotta look at it from both sides.
Thank
even
you.
though they're dead wrong. They're dead wrong.
I agree to a certain extent on that, Nick. But the question that the public is asking, you know, you have a 26-year veteran.
Yes.
Right.
Who also trains police officers.
Yes.
Right.
That's the catch. That's maybe, yeah, we realize mistakes are made. But now we're expecting more from a 26-year veteran training officer.
Yes.
And she failed. And I think
she failed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. You know, I've been listening a whole lot. I'm going way back to what Marlena was saying about the humanity factor. And I'm here to say, yes, the police has plenty of humanity when they are facing another Caucasian.
That's true.
The humanity problem comes when they are facing a minority.
That's true.
And that's where implicit bias comes in the picture. Nick was saying something about training. Yes, that training is very important. We know under Obama, President Obama, the issue was they felt they were the military facing an enemy. And the enemy is always a big black man. You know, it doesn't matter the size you are, but that's what they see. Because in an emergency, you don't think. You just follow your training.
Yeah.
You remember the first guy they killed in, I believe, South Carolina? Remember the way, the stance the police officer had. That's the training stance. He shot the guy in the back. Fortunately, a young man filmed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That comes from his training.
And
another little bit I would like to add. A police officer is not just a cop. He is the only one on earth who has the power he has. He is a law enforcement officer. He is the judge. He is also the executor.
On the street.
Yeah. In a split second, you have to say that person is guilty. So you pass the judgment as a judge, and you can execute the person on the spot. I mean, that kind of person needs to have a lot more training. I know it's a split second, but when so many of us are dying, we have to say, gotta stop.
Listen, when I see videos of a 61-year-old white man in a pickup truck with with police hanging on the side, as he's speeding off, there's injustice. When I see a white guy say, "Watch this, everybody," and he sets up his camera when he's pulled over and he rolls down his window halfway, and they said, "License and registration. What did you pull me over for?" I don't have to tell you my name. All these things that you see on, they could do that. We can't do that. Okay. And the moment that a black man says, oh, I know my rights, I'm not giving you my license and registrations, all of a sudden there's 3 police cars behind him. They all come out with guns. Listen, the lady, I forgot her name. She was the Florida Florida DA. They pull over the Florida. I don't know if y'all saw that. They pull
she
over
was state's attorney. She was state's attorney.
State's attorney.
Yeah.
They pull over the state attorney. She rolls down her windows. They don't know who she is. When she starts to hand it out, she says, I need your badge number. I need your badge number. Do you know who I am? Why do we have to be in a situation like that? Or why do you have to be in a situation like that to be able to get respect? They need to be retrained. They need to be able to understand that even though they do have the power, Maurice, which I'm cool with that, because again, the responsibility that they have is paramount. I'm with that. But still, we can't, as pastors or those of us who are leaders or servant leaders, we know that there are certain things that we can do to take advantage of people. The piece that I'm looking at is that policemen, especially, let's get out of our cities, y'all. I think we have a problem with this. We always thinking Philly. We always thinking DC. We always think there are small city and small hamlets. Let's take, for example, Pottstown, where we work, or Douglasville, where we work. Because they know us, they don't bother us. You heard what I said, everybody? Because they know us, they don't bother us.
That's right.
But if they go on another side of Pottstown or another side down there somewhere where they don't know who we are, they give them the same amount of trouble if they don't know who they are. You understand what I'm saying? I hate to say it, y'all, but Pottstown treat us different because this is gonna sound bad, but I'm gonna say it because they don't see color when they pull us over. Not Pottstown. Douglasville. I made a mistake. Not Pottstown. They know who we are because it's a small environment, 4-mile radius. They know who we are.
Right.
But they are the ones that give the trouble. The small precincts are the ones that give the trouble. How do we send training down there?
Yeah.
If we had not had body cams, if they didn't have somebody on camera, this thing would be blown over, and who would get the blame for it? The 13-year-old. Now forget the 13-year-old. Are you really talking about registration on my license plate? Are you really talking about air fresheners? This kid is dead for that reason.
That's right. Yeah,
that's a problem. That's a problem.
Well, I think that it's.
And may I?
If it was a white person, it would not have happened. Bottom line.
There's no question about that.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to.
Go ahead,
I want to reiterate something that Nick said concerning the policemen and where they shoot, because we all know that they are taught to shoot center mass. We understand that. I just wanted to, when you said, I said a lot and I knew exactly what I was saying. When, for me, as if you are trained in anything, right, you know how to, as pastors, when we're preaching, you look at your audience, right? You know who you're talking to. You know who you are addressing, right? Every sermon is supposed to be fit for the people that you are speaking to, right? So if policemen, when they're coming into certain situations, right, they are already eyeing out, the situation, the site. Do I need backup? What's going to happen? So if you go to a car and a young male is in there and his female, right? And you pull them over for whatever reason, even at that time, if they didn't know that Dante had a weapon, right? We're talking about shooting center mass. Do I need to shoot center mass, right? If this, I have other people with me. He's trying to get into the car. So he's trying to get away. He's not trying to fight me face on. He's trying to get away. When I pull out my weapon, I know that I am trained to shoot center mass. The statement was made earlier. Do they need further training? Do they need training as to say, in certain situations, do I need to shoot the person in the chest? The chest is where the heart is. That's the purpose of where they're shooting. Because if you really wanted to give a warning, you could shoot in an extremity. You don't have to shoot in the center where the organs, the vital organs are. So I said that to say that when you are in a situation and you need to shoot, if you feel that it's justifiable that you slow the person down, that was my issue. Why do you not shoot them in a limb, right? Versus shooting them in the chest. And I understand you said someone else was fired. Then I think that they need to look at the whole strategy of what they do. Some things just need to be changed. And if you shoot center mass, let it be a situation that maybe if you're by yourself, someone is approaching you, you're warning them, they're not stopping, they're coming against you. So you shoot center mass because you have to protect yourself. But not if the young kid is getting in the car to run away. Do you need to shoot center mass?
That's a very good question. I would like to add something very quickly. Marlena, extremely good point. But are we assuming that they see a human being?
Oh my God.
That's the issue. If you are dealing with a human being, yes. But if you know you are dealing with something that looks human, but in your heart and mind, you know they are not human, for me, the issue is not killing center mass or not. It is emptying your gun. They cannot as many bullets. They don't care for the human being.
I can resonate with what Leslie's saying, and I agree. I mean, let's stipulate something, as they would say in the court of law, that many white police officers have problems with regarding Black people as being their equal and sometimes even being human. We stipulate that. Going back to Marlena's point, and that is about this officer, Kim Potter, when she pulled out her weapon, the center mass issue becomes slightly eclipsed by the fact that she said she made a mistake. She was trying to tase him. And at that point, what you do when you're trying to tase someone, you try to tase them where there's the least amount of clothing, because those electrodes have to get through to your skin. But you will, whenever a police officer pulls their gun, they are exercising the option of using deadly force to nullify threat. Deadly force to nullify threat. It is not to slow someone down. It is deadly force to nullify the threat. Now, that's whether they're Black, white, or anything in between. And so we're going to have a problem getting them to retrain that way. The bigger problem is this. We are now at a point where people are saying defund the police. We're at a point where people are saying, for example, in Minneapolis, they were saying disband the police. Right. We have to ask ourselves some questions here, and that is this. None of us would get to a point in our family where we would have somebody move into our house to control the behavior between us and our family members. But we do it every day on the streets, and that is in our communities. We call in strangers and give them the authority to use deadly force, because I'm not sure if I can get along with Latasha and Charles and Pat and Leslie and Marlena. So I'll call in a stranger to make sure that none of y'all crazy people offend me. We wouldn't do that in our house. And maybe it's time for us to begin to try other ways to administer justice and to mediate offenses between ourselves, which brings us to restorative and balanced justice models. But let me tell you, you know, you're not going to get police officers to shoot people in the toe. That won't happen.
I wanted to address the Toledo shooting in a sense. I did see, and I'm sure many of you have seen the press conference by his attorney, and she admitted that he was armed.
Okay.
But she also admitted, and she stated, based on the body cam video, that Toledo dropped his gun or his weapon, whatever it is he had, dropped it. And when the police asked him to turn around and put his hands up, he did that without a weapon. He was fired on anyway. Yeah. That's the problem I have.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. You know, maybe the kid was not an angel. All right. He had a weapon. Okay. I don't know why he had it at 2:00 in the morning. He had, you know, that's immaterial right now. At the flashpoint, he was told to turn around and show your hands. Not exactly in those words. There was an opportunity for the police officer to say, he doesn't have the gun on him now. And so there's no need to nullify him because he technically is not a threat at this very moment to the extent that you have to nullify him. Yep. Now, if he turned around and had the pistol in his hand, you could argue that, well, he still had the weapon. The police officer feared for his life. He fired on him. But clearly the video shows that his hands were empty. And so now comes the question of that stress and that moment where you have to make a split-second decision. It may be, and I'm not in any way supporting a police officer, but you do have to take this into account. It may be that the adrenaline was going. He knew that there was a gun involved. The police officer stops the assailant, sees the weapon that was dropped. Okay. He's already in nullification mode, period. Yeah. And so at that split second, he made the wrong decision.
He did.
Charles, I'm showing you, Melina. Oh boy, I have to let you go first. Again.
Go ahead, Bobby.
That is my training.
I am so sorry. There's a break, so you think you have an opportunity. I don't want to speak over you, but I do want to address a couple of things. And I want to make sure that those who are listening to us understand my point of view. I believe that police should go home at the end of the day. I believe that they should return to their families safely. But what I do want is for us also to return home safely. And I have an uncle who is a policeman, so I'm very sensitive to that because I want him to come home safely. The issue that Charles was speaking, and it was stated many times. I'm very fluent with listening to the news, and it was saying that the officer had 0.8 of a second to make a decision whether to shoot this young man or the young boy, because he's 13, to shoot him or not. And I don't know. I'm just sensitive because we seem to be dying so much now. I mean, even after George Floyd and Black Lives Matter marching so much for almost a year now, I forget the number, but it's been tons. I mean, it's in the teens of numbers of Black and Browns who have been murdered since then. So my question is, what are we learning? What are we still doing the same status quo, stating it was justified? We're going to get you off. What changes are being made? And I did hear my attorney, the civil rights attorney that's with Floyd and Dante right now. I'm just losing his name for a quick second. He says that it is a little bit better that Miss Potter, was arrested quickly before. I know with Breonna and was it with George? It took a long time, right, to be charged, right? And so things seems to be changing there, but the actions on the streets are not being changed. And so the defunding of the police is really more of what else can we do other than give you more weapons? Can we send psychologists out? Can we, depending on the situation? And I don't want any policeman to die. So there is an art to shooting someone that will slow them down versus shooting them in the dead chest, right? And so there are so many other people to add to give advice and counsel so that there can be a change, so that it can look like all lives matter, right? But right now, it appears that we are mistreated the worst. It looks like it. It's on the camera. I see what I see, right? And though I have compassion too for the police, because I know there are times we see so many policemen are shot dead, and that's not a good thing. I don't agree with that, right? But there has to be a change so that we can understand that our voices are being heard. Because right now I feel that my voice is not being heard. Go ahead, Brother Leslie.
Very much. Charles, I would like to go back where you were because I kind of like it. Number one, you described it very well. The police officer, the kid was running, had a gun, threw it away, right? I followed you up to the adrenaline because that way another side of the humanity comes back. I was in hot pursuit. Who are you to make me run so fast? There is a point where the police officer has a gun in his hand, I think it was a male, right? And then realize that kid doesn't have a gun.
Right.
And what I want to point out, Brother Charles, is that at that moment, it ceases to be a mistake. It becomes a murder.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with
if
you.
it is a murder, that cop doesn't have a right to go home. He needs to go straight to jail. He needs to be arrested on the spot.
I understand your point. I agree. I just think that in the pursuit of clarification, we need to look at all angles. Not that one is right or one is wrong, but look at all angles. As what would happen in a court of law. This is why in the George Floyd trial, they're looking at all angles, right or wrong.
Yes, but and there is another issue, because if the cop is trained as the military, then that kid becomes the enemy. It doesn't matter if he has a gun or not.
So there's a psyche there.
There's the point right there.
He's gonna go down.
There's
a psyche.
That is wrong too in the training, but that's the way society feels about it.
But I tell you, I want to go deeper. The problem is systemic. We get the headlines.
Absolutely.
Oh, the police officer shoots and kills, and some people. You name it. The headlines have been horrific. But we never really get to the systemic roots of why it keeps happening. And it keeps happening because there is a systemic malfeasance. There is a system that supports the police departments all over the country.
That's right.
When we say defund the police, some of these municipalities can barely afford their police departments. 20 to 45% of municipal funds generally go to policing. Now, when a police officer or in a county or a police department is sued in court, they don't have the money to pay that. There's a whole financial underpinning that helps municipalities pay their lawsuits. Where does it come from? Wall Street.
Our tax dollars.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And,
now you have police foundations. There are police foundations that do good things for police officers and their families. But they are also doing things that exacerbates and aggravates this ongoing mistraining, terrible situations they don't address, and they do have the money. There are organizations, and you look it up. I tell all my listeners, look it up. Amazon, Wall Street firms, banks, specifically Wells Fargo, Walmart, fossil fuel companies, all contribute to police foundations. And some of them specifically donate to police foundations, not for extra training, not for peer review, not for better quality police officers, for weaponry. So now this becomes the village's responsibility. The people in the town need to rise up and say, wait a minute, this is happening too much, let alone the racial aspect of it. But why are police officers so equipped? You've seen the riot police respond to some of these things. They look like they were in Afghanistan.
Some of them
heavy weaponry.
Yeah.
So where are they getting this money from? There is a system that supports this kind of policing. It's been militarized, and they are being supported in their mindset. So it is the police, it is the police departments, but I think the community bears some responsibility. And when I say community, I'm talking about those who contribute to police foundations.
Charles, the only thing I want to add to what you're saying, yes, there is that system, but part of that system is the brainwash we ourselves have received. Why is it that person is thinking, wait a minute, what's going on? It's the same thing that was going on with the KKK, except that now they can do it in daylight. What is the difference? The KKK has gone blue.
Systemic racism.
Patrick, you're
muted.
There's two things that I'd like to check with this. One is, if you've ever gone gun training, which is the same Anybody have ever done gun training? There are no sheets of paper out there with feet or legs on it.
That's right.
There's none on. No, I'm just going to tell you. If you go out,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
and this, matter of fact, this is not even against Marlene. Okay, I'm just going to be clear that when I go to the shooting range and they throw that piece of paper out there, that long piece of paper out there, that piece of paper out there has headshots and it has body, it has mass. It doesn't have anything below the waist. In other words, when you go to those, which police go there, by the way, they have their memberships there, et cetera, because that's what it's all about. Hold on. What I want to get to is when they even train me to protect my household, they don't tell me about women, males, whatever. But one thing they do tell me is that if you shoot them in the leg, they're going to sue you. If they shoot, Chuck, I know you're looking at me crazy, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is what they train you to do. They train you to kill them in your house, not outside your house. They train you to kill them in the house so that you don't get sued, and don't shoot them in the back.
Right.
All right. No. The reason why I want to,
but we know that doesn't apply to us.
No, right. Well, hold
that's
on.
That's what Breonna Taylor's boyfriend did, but it doesn't apply to us.
Sure. I totally agree with that. That's the reason why I press on what Leslie said, right? Because no matter what happens in your training, when we were in the green room and Nick was talking about something coming out of the Bible, immediately our mindset went to, okay, where is that? You know why, Marlena? Because that's the way we're trained. Yeah. We're trained that once something pops up that might be biblical, it might be eschatology wise or whatever, we automatically focus. They're focused the same way. They get up in the morning wanting to come back to home at night. Hold on, let me just get to this piece. That's why I lean on Leslie. The reason why I lean on Leslie and what he said before is it's the perspective of who the target is. That's where it comes down to. When they wake up when they leave their household, the first thing they think about is, when I get back home here, I got to get back here safe. So whoever the target is, if it's an animal, I can shoot it. If it's dark, I can shoot it. Y'all still not hearing where I'm going with this?
Oh yeah, I hear you.
Right?
Yeah, we understand.
If it's something that I can go to sleep tonight after shooting it, then I'm fine with it. They are not going for legs. They're not going for kneecaps out. They're not going for shoulders out. The guy let's look at the insurrection that happened at the Capitol building. He missed when he hit her in the shoulder. Okay, I mean, she died. I'm sorry that she died, but he missed.
He was aiming center mass.
Right, he's aiming center mass. She might have moved or whatever the case may be. But here's the other side of it: authority didn't look at the insurrectionists as animals.
That's right.
Well, you
They didn't look at
Patriots.
They look at them patriots who are just angry right now. You understand what I'm saying? If it were flipped the other way around, we would have had a massacre out there that day. So the reason why I'm pulling both sides and I'm pulling everybody's sides, what angers me at this, and let me get down to the real nitty gritty of this. My son went to Philadelphia. Dad, I'm going to Philly. All right, son. I see you on Sunday. Sorry, Seventh-day Adventists, whether we went to party or whatever the case may be. My problem was this. Here's my problem. I wasn't thinking about what's going to happen at the party. I wasn't thinking about whether he was going to be dehydrated from drinking. I wasn't thinking about whether or not there was going to be a fight happening in the party and is he going to come back with a black eye or whatever the case may be. My biggest worry was 95 from Philly back to Maryland.
That's right. The same way.
So to me, we could talk about all this all we want. When you have a black male in your family, especially a black male, your mindset automatic. My mindset says, my God, his hands could be on the wheel and still get shot. His hands could be outside of the wheel and still get maced. You understand what I'm saying? His hands could be still up in the air and still get center mass shot. So my worry is, why am I upset about this? Because everything I taught them from the time they got their driver's license means absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
you are so right. Pat, if I may, one thing I would like to know though, and Latasha, maybe we need to have a psychanalyst, some psychologist, because in the description that you gave on that paper that has no legs, I also know something else about human beings. While you're shooting that paper, you have a hateful person in your mind.
You have to.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to.
You have to.
And I can bet you I know what the hateful person look like for a white person, for a white. And that's why when they go out there, they have no doubt as to who the enemy is.
You can pick
Right.
whether it's a lady. You can pick whether it's a man. You can pick whether it's a deer. You could pick anything. You could pick anything. They don't have no little old lady out there. No, seriously, they don't have a picture of a little old lady or a little old man in a cane that's out there for you to shoot. So it's in their mentality right away that we're going to, my target is who I'm going after every day.
Right.
And that's where the mindset has to change.
There is
You know,
something
I think that
bring about George Floyd, because this thing has been really bugging me. I don't know if one of you heard it. I heard a piece of news I've never heard again. Number one, it is that the officer Chauvin and George Floyd were working at the same place, some kind of nightclub, some kind of stuff, and there was a beef between them. Pat, I never heard that again.
Yes.
Vanished.
I don't even want to.
Yeah, you're talking about stuff to talk about in the second chapter of this conversation.
Right.
Am I correct, Natasha?
Now, there is something else. I was listening
Maybe not.
to some Haitian police officers from New York. And one of a sergeant said, you know what? Everybody thinks Chauvin has his hand in his pocket, but that is wrong. No, they think, he had his in his pocket. That is wrong because he was wearing a black glove. His hand was on his thighs.
Yeah.
He was pushing the thighs
down
with much more force on his neck.
Sure. Sure.
I'm asking myself, how come I never hear that on CNN?
Right.
Well, this is going to be good when we have our conversation.
Yeah.
I think we're not going to be able to get
through it. I mean, how do you spend 9 minutes with your knee on somebody else's neck? Where are the other officers?
He's paying him back.
What is the humanity of the guy on the pavement?
There is no humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the trial, you saw that there was an EMT.
That's right.
That was there, off-duty EMT who wanted was human and offered.
Forget human. It's her oath. It's her oath. Forget humanity. It's her oath to take care of somebody who's suffering. It's her oath. I understand humanity, but it's her oath.
Right. And I don't think we're definitely going to have to do a part 2 on this, but I want to get down to the discussion of police accountability. We see this happening over and over and over again. So when do we start discussing police accountability and how it's carried out? I think we all have some responsibility in that as members of a community, a neighborhood, members of a church, community. We all have a responsibility in questioning police accountability and the police industrial complex, which goes deeper than what we what we are able to discuss today. I know we're it's emotional and we're angry. I am, but we need to go deeper. We really do need to go deeper because that's not talked about.
Conclusion coming, and I have to say, for me, this thing hits very close. I heard Pat. I don't have boys. I do have 2 girls, but that was my issue with them. Whenever they're gonna go somewhere, I know if anything bad happens, somehow they're gonna be the one that's caught in.
Sure, that's very real.
In whatever it is. And, my thing is, no, I don't want to fight. I don't want to point fingers. I don't want you to go into a revolution or anything. I would like to talk to my white brothers, Seventh-day Adventist brothers, sisters, or any Christian for that matter. Where is your outrage? I know you care about the fetus in the womb. What about a 20-year-old who's about to enter life? Kill for air freshener. You and I know it would never happen to a white person. It gotta be systemic racism. Why are you not outraged?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where our part 2 and part 3 will come into. There's so many layers to this issue. I mean, I've been listening to the conversation. And, we really only dealt with kind of the police and the training that needs to, at least from our perspective, the retraining that needs to take place. But there's some other issues involved in here that we're just going to have to tackle.
Yes,
we will.
if I may, with all respect to the president of the country, to the governor of every state, to the mayors, is it open season on Black people?
It sure feels like it.
It appeals that way, doesn't
come
it?
on,
It appears that way.
going on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
but you have to understand, Leslie, this is not new. Go back to the 60s, go back to the 50s. This has all been happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is not new. And so I think it speaks to the condition of humanity, especially in this country, of how we feel about each other and the systemic racism. But I'd like to, dig a little deeper in our part 2 on this, because there's something we need to know about stepping up and demanding police accountability and digging deeper as to why they're so empowered, even after these horrific news stories that have happened in the last couple of months. How is it that it keeps happening?
In the same state, by the way.
Yeah.
In
Correct.
the same state. While the trial is going on. Come on.
Not too many miles apart.
Right.
And
10 miles apart.
Yeah. And as I think about this and listen to everything as we conclude, I think about my own children and, how I was taught about the police versus how I have to teach my children about the police, and there's a shift that's happening that's just impacting all of us and even the next generation. That's really sad. But, we have to do our part. Part of what we're doing now is discussing it, bringing it to the forefront so people can be aware of the issues that need to be addressed. And as we move on with this dialogue in part 2 and part 3, we'll talk about some of those strategies, some of those things that we can do as individuals, as churches, to address this issue that we see plaguing our community.
We may want to tell them we know about the hypocrisy too, because when it is a Caucasian minor that is involved, they call the parents.
Yeah,
And when it is a Black kid, that's when you have to go to jail and go to all the judicial system. So we know that they can acknowledge humanity in certain cases. In other cases, it is the enemy. It is the vermin.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yep. So these are some of the topics that we're going to bring out in our part. I know it's hard to confine. When we're fired up about something, it's hard to confine it into an hour or less. But we're going to keep the dialogue going. Well, until the next upset, everyone have a great day.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good day, everyone. Bye-bye.